Hi everybody. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. I had to nip over to my son's. I thought it would be less work now he's moved out, but it's more work because he's not at home and he still needs helping with things. Anyway, hello everybody, and this is day 2 of sharing bits and pieces about how to give up sugar. Now we're in the new year and people are probably sick and tired of how they're feeling. So it'd be great if anybody's there and anybody can hop on and just tell me that they can hear me. That would be great. There seems to be nobody on at the moment, so I'll just wait a couple of minutes. It's absolutely freezing out there. It feels like winter has really sunk. Let me just show you the view out my window. You can just see it's very wintry, those grey skies, very grey skies. Oops, somebody's popped on. Whoever's watching, can you just give me a heart or a like if you can hear me? So I'm just checking. And if not, I shall just carry on anyway and I can check afterwards. So hopefully you can hear me, whoever's watching. So let's get started. So I wanted to do this video to talk a bit about the idea of deprivation versus adding in. Great, somebody's give me a heart, so I imagine that means they can hear me. So I want to look at thanks Heather, the principle of adding in versus deprivation. Now, often what happens is when people think about giving up sugar, they immediately feel deprived and they immediately start thinking to themselves, well, what am I going to eat? How can I celebrate? You know, how am I going to make this work? Because we associate so much of how we eat with sugar and rewarding ourselves and having a treat in the afternoon, having a snack in the morning to keep our energy going. So what I wanted to do, particularly with my Nourish Yourself to Sugar Freedom course, the emphasis, because my background is in nutrition and working with people to bring food as medicine, I want to bring the idea of actually what we're doing is we're nourishing ourselves to sugar freedom. We are giving up sugar, but actually the emphasis is much more about what we're bringing in, what we're adding into our diet. Firstly, to make being sugar-free much easier, to stop the cravings being as strong, to just stop us feeling really hungry, all those things that happen when we go sugar-free initially. So to stop that, but also, as I said in the video yesterday, this is a healing journey. We're actually we're actually healing our body by giving up sugar, because as soon as we stop putting this really challenging substance in our body will naturally go into repair and healing mode. And if we can then add to that process by giving it lots of nutrients and lots of juicy phytochemicals that we find in plants, then that healing is going to increase even more. So today I just wanted to talk to you about some of the things that you can add in to make your sugar-free journey easier and to really speed along that healing. Now, healing from years and decades of eating a sugar-full diet takes a long time. I've noticed that with my own body. It's still recovering. It's still not 100% of how I want it to be, but it doesn't really matter because I'm carrying on anyway, and the healing happens behind the scenes. I don't have to focus on it. Okay, so what do we talk about adding in, and what are the really essential things to add in? So the first thing to add in is good fats. Now, I know for a lot of people in this group, because I see what people answer, they answer their questions when they sign up for the group, I would say that probably 60% to 70% of people state that losing some weight is one of their goals about being sugar-free. And so when I mention the idea of adding fat in, you know, people are going to start going, well, I can't possibly do that. I'm trying to lose weight. But the reality is this isn't, fat doesn't make us fat. Sugar and processed carbs make us fat. And, you know, this is quite a leap. It depends, you know, how old you are. But I think pretty much, you know, from when I started, you know, dieting, you know, in my teens, I was a child of the 60s. We were told, we were fed that story that eating too much fat makes you fat. Eating saturated fat makes you fat. But actually research is now showing that all those things that we were told happen because we eat fat, you know, like heart disease, cholesterol, all those things are actually caused by eating too much sugar and processed carbs. You know, whether you choose to eat meat or not, and this isn't a judgment on being vegetarian or vegan. I was vegetarian / vegan for almost 30 years. I do eat meat now. But, you know, we are designed as a species to actually eat meat. I mean, the quality of the meat is something else. But anyway, I'm going slightly off piste then. I'm just sort of talking a bit about meat. But yes, adding in healthy fats. So when I talk about healthy fats, I'm talking about good oils. So like olive oil, coconut oil, nuts, seeds, particularly the omega-3 seeds. So things like flax seeds, also known as linseeds, they are absolutely fantastic at rebuilding our body and facilitating that healing process. So they're also the precursors of hormones. So what we're doing when we're giving up sugar, we're really working to rebalance some of those hormones in the body. First of all that insulin that's produced, that's a hormone. And then we've got the hormones leptin and ghrelin. I can never say that properly. You know, those are hormones that control our appetite and also control how well we can balance our weight. So giving ourselves lots of omega-3 fats is really, really crucial to healing our body. Now, the other brilliant thing about fats, and now you've got the green light to go and eat fats, is your food will taste much better. You know, I don't know if anybody like me, and I didn't for many, many years, but say in my 20s, I might buy diet foods. You know, basically they were completely tasteless. And the only reason they weren't completely tasteless, if they weren't, is because they were packed with sugar. But if you actually eat, you know, natural yogurt, full fat yogurt, have full fat milk, butter, you know, all those things, yes, they're calorie rich, but they're really, really tasty. And what's also fantastic about eating more fats is it helps keep our blood sugar levels stable. So when we start going sugar-free, our hormones are going to be up and down like this because our insulin level is probably a bit too high. And as I said yesterday, we're unable to access the stored reserves we've got in our body, i.e. our fat. We can't do that until our insulin level comes down to the right level. So, I've lost my thread now. I was talking about fats, talking about adding in fats. I can't remember. Anyway, so eating fats is absolutely key. Hormone levels, that's what I was talking about, is absolutely key to having our hormones work as they are designed to. And, you know, so one of the first things we do on the 6-week program, which is actually now a 9-week program, is make sure you're adding in plenty of good fats, you know, and actually giving you a cheat sheet that goes, add this into your diet, you know, sprinkle nuts and seeds on your soup, sprinkle nuts and seeds on your salad, add a really nice tasty dressing to your salad. Don't be frightened of fats. Fats actually make us really well. They absolutely help us lose weight and they help stabilize our blood sugar. And, oh, thank you, Elizabeth. That's what I was saying about being up and down. Yeah. So it's absolutely key to really nourishing ourselves to add in those good fats. I mean, you can do lots of different things. If you don't want to eat butter, you know, you can spread lovely coconut oil on whatever you're eating, or olive oil on whatever you're eating. You know, there's lots of ways of bringing more fat into your diet. And I tell you, it's incredibly liberating and tasteful and healthful when you actually start doing it. So, fats. They are not taboo. We love fats. I love fats. You know, I've lost a ton of weight, not literally a ton, but a lot of weight, and I eat loads of fats. I make sure I have good fats with every single meal. And, you know, I enjoy my food much more, and I'm much more satiated, you know, much more satisfied with my meal, much more easily. So fats is the first thing to add in. Then I've talked about adding in protein. Now again, protein alongside fat is another stabilizer of blood sugar, because eating protein things are things like meat, cheese, all the dairy stuff has protein in. There's proteins in beans and legumes, soya, those sort of things have all got protein in, but they don't affect our insulin level. So it's part of becoming sugar-free is learning to manage your blood sugar level, because what most people are used to is they eat a meal, it's got lots of processed carbs or sugar in, and their blood sugar shoots up. And basically, you know, we're feeling, oh, we've got lots of energy, we're almost buzzing because we've got lots of energy because it's flooded into our blood system. Our body goes into hyperdrive because it's not safe for us to have that much sugar in our bloodstream. So our pancreas produces, in response, gets signal to the brain, goes back to the pancreas, produces insulin, which immediately takes any excess sugar out of the bloodstream and stores it either in the liver or as fat. And so we go up, flood of blood sugar, and then we have a crash down. And it's when we have this crash down that we get really hungry, we're craving, and we need to eat again. So a lot of people have this cycle up and down throughout the whole day. Now, if we cut out sugar and cut down on our processed carbs, and we, you know, make sure we have fat in our meals and protein in our meals, then our blood sugar level is just going to go like this. So it barely means that we have to produce any insulin, because whatever food we're eating, we're using as we burn, using as we digest. So if you think our food goes down into our stomach, begins the digestion process, actually some of it starts in the mouth, some of it starts in the stomach, and then it goes into the small intestine, which is the main place for digestion. And then basically, you know, if you think of all those whole grains going in there, thinking of like brown basmati rice, if you think, you know, that's in there, it's a whole grain. It has some protein in. It also is a whole carbohydrate. And, you know, because you've got all the husk on the grain, it just takes ages for it to break down. You know, it's not like white rice that you can just crush, and it just is, you know, like that's like eating sugar. So anything that we eat that has protein in will break down really slowly. So I went off piste again because I talked about protein, and then I was talking about whole carbohydrates. But anyway, it's all the same thing. It's about adding in not just protein, but adding in whole grains rather than having any of the processed grains. And the third thing I've got on my list is adding in water. And I talked about this yesterday, but I'm going to talk about it again because it's so, so important. As I've already said, you know, when we are really nourishing ourselves to sugar freedom, we're also healing. And any change that happens in the body has to be done in the medium of water, not in the medium of alcohol, Coca-Cola. Even if it's diet Coca-Cola and has no sugar in, it still has artificial sweeteners in. So no tea, coffee, all those things. Now, I'm not saying don't have the tea and the coffee occasionally. I'm not saying that. I have my green tea here. But make sure you're eating plenty of plain water. because that really nourishes your body and really gives the message of hydration to your body, which makes it feel less stressed. And when your body is less stressed, it will heal much quicker. So I cannot stress enough how important it is to make sure you're hydrated. Now, the other way you can make sure you're hydrated is by soaking foods. So soaking any dry foods you have before you have them. So, one of my favorite recipes is soaked overnight oats, because when you soak them, it's a bit like cooking them, but you haven't had to cook them, and it's a much slower process. And also soaking your nuts and seeds, again, it makes them much easier to digest. So if anybody here has problems digesting nuts and seeds, try soaking them beforehand overnight. Rinse them off, throw away the soak water, and you're left with these really plumped up nuts. And basically what you've done is you've almost started the germination process, because if you think nuts and seeds are, as I said, seeds, so when you take them out of dormancy, they're much more easy for us to digest. Because basically a substance in there is removed in the soaking process, and that's why you throw it away. Okay, so that's the third thing. So you've got good fats, wonderful, delicious, good fats. Protein, add protein to most meals. And this doesn't have to be meat, it can be beans, it can be pulses. And yes, those things also do have carbohydrates in. But again, it's about that balance. They will be whole carbohydrates. And this is very, very different to processed carbohydrates, not the same at all. Okay, and then the fourth thing on my list, just looking at my list, is preparation. And I talked about that yesterday. I talked about the importance of making sure you clear the decks, making sure you can be as on track as possible with what you're eating. So for me, what I did when I started, I had lists on the fridge of meals that I could quickly prepare. And they would be really things like scrambled egg on rye toast. So simple things. It didn't take long, because I still occasionally do eat rye toast. I get that Biona rye bread, which is very whole grain, and apparently it has a very low glycemic load, which means it burns slowly in the body. So it's a very different type of bread to having, a processed, more processed loaf that you would buy in a supermarket. Even a wholemeal loaf in the supermarket is still very processed. So I'd have things like scrambled egg on toast, an omelette, some cheese maybe on some chopped apple, some peanut butter on chopped apple, peanut butter or almond butter on banana. I would, those are just a few things. I would have a list of things that I knew I could have quickly. I didn't have to think about it. The list was there, and it meant that I could just, look at my list, go, okay, I'm going to have that. I didn't have to use any thought process really into it. I just had to make a choice, because that's really important. Again, when you start, you are going to be probably more hungry. You might not be. I was more hungry, and you will be having those, calls of, eat this, eat that, it's time for that, because you're changing all those habits. So just get organized and be as prepared as possible. I mean, I know some people do really well with batch preparing snacks for the week ahead, batch preparing meals that they can take out the freezer. I've never been mega organized at doing that. I was more organized at the start because I was so determined, and it does make a difference. But I would always do things like make sure I had a nut and seed mix that I would always take with me, and an apple whenever I went out. Honestly, it was as simple as that. It wasn't, I need to spend hours preparing and cooking things. It was literally just in case I'm hungry. And often I didn't have it, but it was just in case I'm hungry. This is what I can have. I don't have to think, you know, oh, I'm just filling up the car with petrol, there's a chocolate bar there. I think, no, that's not what I'm going to do. I am now sugar free and I want to keep doing that. I'm loving my body and I've got nuts and seeds and an apple in the car if I really need it. So it's about giving yourself those options, so being prepared. And the final thing to say, which is sort of linked to the first one, is focus on the nutrient value of food, not on calories. Now, I know for a lot of people who start wanting to be sugar-free, they are serial dieters. You know, especially we're in January, you know, that's when everybody says, I want to go on a diet, I want to lose weight, I want to be, you know, I want to feel healthier in my skin, I want to fit into that dress for this event, blah, blah, blah. You know, I've done it, I did it for years, but really, you know, and they would count, you know, look at the calorie amount, you know, and if it was a low calorie, you know, total on the back of the packet, then that meant a good thing. What I would say to you is really ignore the calories. So, but what you do need to maybe count, if you want to count, is the nutrition in food. So, and this is really easy to judge. Again, you don't need to know anything about nutrition to count the nutrition. So basically, if it's natural, if it looks like Mother Nature created it, then it's a good food to eat. You know, whether that's lovely tomatoes or red peppers or grapefruit or a piece of meat, you know, and when I talk about meat and fish, I talk about choosing meat and fish, you know, that have been well loved, well brought, you know, they're well farmed, they're not factory farmed meat, because they're much better quality, or much better to have, you know, some meat and fish, a small amount. So use your budget to eat a small amount of meat and fish, and then have the rest of the time have lovely beans and legumes and add that into your soup. So for tea tonight, I'm just making a leek and potato soup. It's one of my favourite soups, and I'm adding some red and yellow split peas in it. So all of those things, all of those ingredients, apart from the olive oil, which is obviously, it's cold pressed, so it's good olive oil, or I might put a bit of butter in to start with. All of those, you know, ingredients look exactly as Mother Nature created them. They haven't been refined in a factory in any way. So that's how you know the food you eat is good for you. Things like the butter. Yes, you could say butter has been processed, but people have been churning butter for centuries. You know, it's a very minimal process. They're making cheese. People have been making cheese for centuries. You know, again, minimal preparation. Still, the integrity of the goodness still remains within that food. So it's minimally processed or completely natural. And if you keep just eating those foods and don't eat foods that have been processed, then you will reach your health goals. And, you know, for some people, there will be, you need to do other tweaks if they've got specific health conditions. But fundamentally, getting started on eating natural foods, really, really simple. It's not rocket science at all. You don't need to know huge amounts about nutrition. Just keep it so, you know, it's not made in a factory. If it's made in a factory, if it's been processed by Mr. Kipling or Hovis or anybody like that, then just either cut it out or keep it to an absolute minimum and just eat stuff that looks like real food. So that is, you know, it's a key. It's a key. You're adding in more of that. And if you add in more of those foods, then you don't really need to think about, am I getting enough of this vitamin? Am I getting enough fibre? Am I getting enough calories? Am I getting enough? All those things will be completely taken care of. So you make food, you make your meal with real food. You get to the end of the meal, you feel full, you've had a good meal. That is healing in itself. It doesn't have to be really, really complicated. And, you know, people, I also say to people, you know, eat food that your grandparents or great grandparents would recognise as food. You know, that idea of a meat and two veg, or fish and two veg, or, you know, a bean stew or a split pea stew or leek and potato soup. You know, it's all foods, real foods that, you know, our relatives, our elderly relatives would recognise. And, you know, that is the fundamental key and the fundamental add-in to being sugar-free. You start off nourishing your body with proper food, real fat, good protein sources, lots of hydration, eating, you know, drinking water, drinking plain water. Have it warmed up this time of year with maybe a slice of ginger and, you know, a slice of lemon. Delicious, delicious. You know, set your glass, set your jug at the start of the day. I'm on a drinking more water stint at the moment. It is my Achilles heel, always, particularly in the winter. I start drinking less water and drinking more herb teas, and I need to get back to trying to drink more water. So what I will do is I'll start the day, I'll fill up our first kettle in the morning, I'll fill up a big flask of hot water, and my aim is to have 2 of those by the end of the day. So, you know, set up little routines so you can set your body up to really, really thrive with this change rather than it being a struggle. And so in terms of deprivation, you know, actually what you're depriving yourself is what is making you feel unwell. It's sugar, it's processed carbs, but the focus is actually in adding in lots of wonderful, nutritious, healthful food. That is the focus. And if you take your mind off not having that and going, but actually I'm having this instead, you know, look in what you're having direction rather than what you're not having. As long as you've always got something ready, then it's really easy to add that in something, you know, add something in instead. So let me just see if there's any question. Oh, there's loads. How long do they keep in the fridge after soaking? Hi, Michelle. So I would say a couple of days in like a sealed glass jar or a Tupperware. You can keep it in there. Hi, Siobhan. Yeah, the Biona rye bread, that's what I buy. It's what I use and it really fills me up. Seriously, if people are breadheads on here and they love their bread, rye bread might take a bit of getting used to. You know, it's really dense, and honestly, I need one slice, and it fills me up. If I'm on I need a quick meal, and I have 2 slices of goat's cheese on toast with some salad. Honestly, 2 is plenty. Elizabeth said, I'm a bit embarrassed about how little knowledge I have in this area. I was raised on processed food and have cultivated that habit with various skills for cooking. It's going to be a good challenge. It will be a good challenge. But to be fair, on my parents, we did have a meat and 2 veg often. Okay. So honestly, the other thing people think about starting to prepare their own food, that there has to be a bit like Master Chef or Bake Off, where they're creating all this fancy pantsy food. Honestly, food can be really, really simple, you know, really simple. It doesn't have to be, you know, really complicated. It can be, you know, just, you know, a nice piece of meat with some vegetables, a nice piece of fish with some vegetables, a nice bean stew. I think, Elizabeth, you said that you'd cooked a chicken casserole. And, you know, it can be really simple food. It doesn't have to be fancy or look particularly pretty. It's about getting as much of that good nutrition in so we feel fantastic. And I think I think there is such a culture of loving those food programs. Now, I love those food programs, but I think for some people who maybe aren't confident about cooking, I mean, I'm the sort of person that I use a recipe book just to give me ideas, and then I go, oh, that sounds a good idea, but I think I can do that better instead. Sometimes it's a complete disaster and I go back to the recipe and go, okay, I understand why they've written that recipe down. But often you know, I come up with something different that I make my own. But I think for people who aren't confident, they can be a bit like, oh my goodness, you need to create this roux and it needs to be like this and like that. And actually it doesn't. It really, really doesn't. Some lovely steamed vegetables, you know, with some brown rice and some olive oil dressing, you know, and maybe sprinkled with some cashew nuts. Delicious, delicious, nutritious, and really, really simple. So I hope, Elizabeth, that means, you know, when you do the course, because I know you've signed up, you can be inspired to try some really simple things and actually focus on, you know, getting some good, simple nutrition in. But honestly, you're not alone in feeling, you know, slightly, you know, overwhelmed or a bit fearful of stepping out and actually starting to cook more. So yeah, anyway, so in going back, let's sort of sum up and why the sugar-free journey is about adding in, not deprivation. So good fats, start by adding in some nuts, some seeds, soak them if you can. If you can't, doesn't matter. The only seeds I would say don't have unsoaked is linseeds / flax seeds, because they basically come out the other end as they went in. Their shell is so hard that we just can't digest them. So I always mill mine. I've got a coffee grinder. I don't drink coffee. I never have liked it, but I just mill my flax seeds in there. So have some fresh nuts and seeds every day and sprinkle that on soups, salads, breakfast. That's a really simple way of adding in some good fats. Also, don't be afraid, you know, to add some olive oil on your salads, or, you know, put butter in your baked potato, you know, all those things. Don't be afraid of fat. Fat is good for you. We're made to eat good fats. As long as they're natural fats, they're not processed in the factory. So fats, good. Protein is great. Again, it's staking down the blood sugar, so our blood sugar doesn't go like this. So make sure, particularly at the start, you have some protein at the start of every meal. No, at the start of with every meal. So we're talking about eggs, meat, cheese, beans, legumes, nuts and seeds. Have all those things with every meal. Get hydrated. Really, really work hard at bringing your hydration level up and start drinking more water, and also start having less of the things that make you dehydrated. Tea, coffee, alcohol, pop. All those things are going to make you naturally dehydrated. So again, you can do that thing, increase the water, decrease the dehydration. Preparation. Make it easy for yourself so you don't have to think on the spot. Have a list of what foods, what, you know, meals are good to have, and, you know, keep a list in your handbag if you like of snacks that you can quickly run into the supermarket and get, you know, so you're absolutely focused. You look on your list, okay, oh, a punnet of blueberries on my list. Go in, focus on the blueberries, or a packet of nuts, focus on the nuts. You're not waylaid by those shelves and shelves of processed and sugary snacks. So you can be like a, you know, a ninja, focusing on where you need to be. And then also focus on adding more nutrition into your meals. Forget about calories. Don't even think about calories. If you're eating healthily, if you're eating food that looks as nature produced it, then you don't need to know about calories. Calories is only relevant if you're eating a diet full of sugar and processed carbs. So that's the summary. I hope that made sense. Is there if there's any questions? I don't think there's any questions at the moment. Just looking on my list about what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm be on again doing a live, and I'm going to be talking about cravings. And I think I've identified 5 different types of cravings that we may have when we give up sugar, and they all sort of they all got a slightly different angle to them. So I'm going to go through the 5 types of cravings tomorrow and things you can do to help yourself to stop craving. That's what I'm doing tomorrow. And just a quick word to say, the early bird offer is open. The cart is open. I've had quite a few people join already, which is really, really exciting. And it will be open, I think, for another 7 days. And then the cost of the course will go to full price. And we're going to start on the 21st of January. So just to remind you what the course is, it's 6 weeks of new material each week. You get lifetime access to the learning platform and the Facebook group. And then I've added on to the end of this course 3 extra weeks, which I've called implementation weeks. They help you review all the material we've done, and it just gets you going, and it sort of takes you to that 66 days-ish, which apparently research has shown that's the amount of time it takes you to create new sustainable habits. So that's that's why I've done that. And also this time you'll get a weekly downloadable journal sheet that you can fill in to keep you on track. So I'm really chuffed to have added those 2 extra things for this round. And yeah, so I'm really excited. I always love doing the round. I love seeing people really make changes to how they're eating and to really feel the benefit. And I don't know if you saw in the group today, someone called Biddy shared what's been going on with her. She was somebody who did the last round of the course, and she had osteoarthritis, and she's continued to be sugar-free and carried on, and she's really reaping the benefits now. She's walking much easier. She has a lot less pain, and sometimes is pain-free. And this has all been since giving up sugar and really healing her gut. So, you know, this is life-changing. There was somebody else who, you know, had been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes 15 years ago, and is now doesn't have type 2 diabetes. She's, you know, gone right up to still sort of being in that in-between area, you know, where the doctors say you're at risk of. So she's just carrying on, but she no longer has type 2 diabetes. I mean, how amazing is that? So this course can be really, really life-changing for people in terms of their health. And, you know, people have lost loads of weight. They've also got more energy. They've got more clarity. And I just love it. I love seeing people flourishing and thriving. So, yep, if you want to join in, there's an announcement in the top of the group that has all the information. So anyway, lots of love to you. I'm going to go off and make my soup now, and it's already getting dark out there, real wintry, isn't it? And a newsletter, if anybody's on my newsletter list, I'm going to be downloading this video and it'll go out in your newsletter as well. So you're going to get some extra bits in there as well. So lots of love to you, and I'll see you tomorrow to talk about cravings. Take care, lovely people. Let me check. Oh, great news. And Elizabeth said thank you. Lovely, and thanks to everybody who joined, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care for now. Bye.